Nicole Scherzinger rose to international pop stardom as the frontwoman of the Pussycat Dolls. Nicole always wanted to be a solo artist, and she saw the Pussycat Dolls as the perfect opportunity to launch her career and eventually transition into a solo act, telling Cosmopolitan magazine, "When I got offered the Pussycat Dolls, I said, I will be in the group, but I want a solo deal as well. I knew that was my dream." Years later, the Pussycat Dolls are still present, and Nicole Scherzinger has become more of a personality on her own merits. She is most notably a panelist on the hit TV show The Masked Singer. Nicole is an undeniable talent. However, it didn't seem to transfer over too well once she finally went solo. Nicole initially began her career as a part of the short-lived girl group Eden's Crush, which was put together on a TV show called Pop Stars. Eden's Crush only released one album and had one true hit. Eden's Crush is one of the true forgotten girl bands of the thousands. The group consisted of Nicole Scherzinger, Rosanna Tavares, Yvette Sosa, Anna Marie Lombo, and Maylee M. Their big single Get Over Yourself was released in 2001. It was a top 10 hit in both Canada and the US. They seemed to be destined for more success. Their debut and only album Pop Stars was eventually released, and it also debuted in the top 10. They toured with NSYNC and Jessica Simpson, but in 2003 their record company Sire Records ran out of money and the group disbanded. Although their album Pop Stars would go on to sell over 500,000 copies, the sales were still a little lower than expected, and ultimately they were cut short before they even had a chance to get started. After Eden's Crush, Nicole was asked to join the Black Eyed Peas. Yes, before Fergie, Nicole was offered a spot, but her then boyfriend denied the offer. Eventually, after shopping around to labels and performances, Robin Anton set out to create the Pussycat Dolls. Nicole auditioned and the rest is history. The Pussycat Dolls were initially a burlesque group. They were simply entertainment and had many interchangeable members. As they began to grow, they would eventually transform into a pop girl group and were branded with pop appeal. The main members of the group were Ashley Roberts, Nicole, Jessica, Melody Thornton, and Kimberly Wyatt, with many different interchangeable members. "I don't have a good memory, and I remember that audition like it was yesterday," she says. "They were rolling their eyes anyway. They only let me take 2 steps into the room. I pretty much sang an original song, a cappella, standing next to the door. All I had to go on was my talent for singing, and an original song too. Don't Ya is the song that will put the Pussycat Dolls on the map, and it became overwhelmingly clear at that point in time that Nicole was the leader of the group. There wasn't one song or video where Nicole didn't have the lead part. What followed Don't Ya was nothing short of greatness, a multi-platinum debut album with 3 top 5 hits, Don't Ya, Stick With You, and Buttons. The Dolls had great branding and naturally began to branch out into other avenues, most notably a TV show where they searched for the next addition to the Pussycat Dolls. Talking about the immense success of the group, Nicole said, "We had quite a machine behind it, so things happened very focused and very fast. They had their perfect candidate right here, because I'm a workhorse. I just rolled up my sleeves, got in the studio, and turned out these records. Before we were done, we had hits coming out." Nicole's original debut album, Her Name Is Nicole, was scrapped due to a string of poor performing singles. A lot of the songs from that album became Pussycat Dolls songs or were given away to other artists. The Pussycat Dolls were still in their prime and she continued on with them. A very personal important fact is Nicole was struggling with her eating disorder. Even though she had problems with her eating disorder prior to the Pussycat Dolls, the pressures of the group and public image ultimately worsened while the Pussycat Dolls were at the top of the game. In 2008, the Pussycat Dolls released their final album, nicely titled Doll Domination. The album wasn't as big as their debut album, but still has some hits such as When I Grow Up, a song that was initially offered to Britney Spears, Ja Ho, and I Hate This Part. Nicole would release her official debut single Poison in 2010, a Red One produced song, and he would produce a chunk of her debut album, which resulted in some of the tracks sounding similar. Her debut album Killer Love was never released in the States, and achieved limited success throughout Europe. Her second and final album thus far, titled Big Fat Lie, would follow 3 years later, and was a much more personal effort, but still wasn't a big break for her, and mostly experienced failure as a whole, and some moderate success throughout international markets. Scherzinger would venture off into a plethora of different things, becoming an X Factor judge, being the voice actor for the character Cena in the Disney movie Moana, and currently a panelist on The Masked Singer. So it's fair to say she hasn't lost out on any opportunities that have come her way. In 2020, she would reunite with the Pussycat Dolls, and they will release their big comeback single React, which is just classic Pussycat Dolls with a modern touch. She also made up with the other dolls while being ultra personal and vulnerable. The other members of the Pussycat Dolls, there were a lot of moments when I was with them that I was distant and standoffish. I never opened up to them to talk about my problems, and I would shut myself away and push them away because I was battling this horrible secret illness, bulimia. Due to her battle with her disorder, she always wanted to reunite with the Pussycat Dolls because she never truly got to enjoy what she was doing because it stole her joy, she says. Her struggle with bulimia was so severe that it even began to affect her vocal cords, and she began to seek help and rebuild her self-love. And she eventually recovered, which is a great personal achievement for her. Nicole's biggest solo hit was Don't Hold Your Breath in 2011, which replaced Adele's Someone Like You at the #1 position in the UK. Nicole reflected upon her solo career not taking off when asked if she would want to be as big as some of her contemporaries. Oh, absolutely. It's been forever since I put out music, and that's difficult for me, especially when I always set such high expectations for myself. I want to be on my 15th world tour. She also has anxiety and prefers not to be overexposed in the media. Her solo career just never quite took off, and in my opinion, it didn't need to. Her solo career was a non-factor. Musically speaking, her solo career wasn't very memorable. She essentially already had a solo career going with the Pussycat Dolls. I pretty much executive produced those records. That music felt like my music, she said. She sung all the records, including the backgrounds. The other members didn't hear the songs until the albums were finished. I feel like the branding of the Pussycat Dolls made up for the lack of spark she had as a solo artist. The Pussycat Dolls were distinct, had a pretty standout sound and image. Nicole as a solo artist didn't. Let's be clear, Nicole is the Pussycat Dolls, and they're nothing without her. And in the same vein, they are essential to her as well. Nicole had already carved a superstar path for herself while in the group. And in a sense, I do feel like the group should have been rebranded as Nicole and the Pussycat Dolls at some point in time. It's not like she had other active members that were placed to the forefront that could have eclipsed her star quality. The name change would have set a more realistic standard for the group and not have people overanalyze the dynamic of the group or lack thereof. Usually when an artist goes solo from a group, there's a push forward in artistic identity and music, but it was the exact opposite for her. Nicole is also a self-proclaimed perfectionist. According to her, she has about 500 songs recorded that no one has ever heard, and a few scrapped albums. I also don't feel like her solo material exactly showcased her range or vocal ability. She also turned down a ton of hits. Just to name a few that she turned down: On the Floor by Jennifer Lopez and Pitbull, Rihanna and Calvin Harris's We Found Love, and Lady Gaga's Just Dance. Nonetheless, Nicole alongside the Pussycat Dolls feels the most natural, and her star quality truly shines within that group. It's undeniable that she's a talented and gorgeous woman, but a solo career isn't right for everyone. Nicole appears to be happy to be back in full action with the Dolls again, and we couldn't imagine her any differently these days.